Hey everyone, welcome to week 6 of the program. Today I'm going to introduce hydroponics, another plant growing technology that we are going to explore in the resilience growing program. Much like aquaponics, in hydroponics we are growing plants in water, and nutrients are provided to the plant through their roots, which are suspended in water. The key difference between the two, however, is the way that the nutrients is added to the system. With aquaponics, we know that we need to feed the fish, and this produces the nutrients for the plants. However, in hydroponics, we add the nutrients directly in either a liquid or a powder form. Think of it like adding fertilizer to the garden. Hydroponic nutrients contain all of the same inorganic nutrients found in soil that plants need to grow, and they come in many forms and from many different sources. The major advantage of hydroponics is that the nutrients in the water are easy for the plant to access, so they don't need to expend much energy looking for nutrients. This means that hydroponics is far more efficient than soil growing. Because you're controlling the nutrient input, you can scale the size of your production and grow more plants faster. And it does not require soil, and so may be located in many places, such as in your home. It is also far more water efficient than soil growing and more productive in terms of the total amount of kgs of plants you can grow for the same resources. However, some disadvantages are that it can be expensive to set up, it requires electricity to maintain, and uses non-biodegradable materials such as plastic. That's why we've decided to try and repurpose some of the materials that we've sent you in your kit so that we can try and make this a zero waste exercise as much as possible. One important quality to note about hydroponics is the lack of a biological culture within the system. Unlike in soil or aquaponics, hydroponic setups often don't have the same beneficial bacteria living in the system. In fact, they don't have any bacteria at all. They are kept as sterile as possible. While this means we can have more control over the system and can grow plants faster, it can leave the system more prone to harmful bacterial and fungal infections. So it is important to practice the best hygiene that we can when we're looking after our hydroponic setups. So, how do we manage our hydroponic systems? Now, there are many different types of hydroponics. The setups we are going to be using at home are known as deep flow. Now, this is because the roots grow directly down into the body of water below. There are two key things to manage in our hydroponic systems: pH and EC. pH, you should be familiar with at this point, is a measure of how acidic or basic the water is. This is the same as in your aquaponic system. Most of the vegetables we like to eat and the vegetables and microgreens that we will be growing in our hydroponic and our aquaponic setups like slightly acidic water between 6.5 and 7 pH. So therefore, testing and adjusting the pH is good for maintaining and growing your plants. You can measure the pH of your system using the same test kit that you can use for your aquaponics, which is pretty cool. And we will show you ways of maintaining and adjusting your pH into the future. EC, or electrical conductivity, is the measure of the total amounts of nutrients present in the water. It is used to determine whether we need to add more nutrients to the water or not. Now, it doesn't provide any information on the mixture of nutrients present, so it doesn't tell us anything about the quality of the nutrients. However, it does tell us the total amount in the body of water. For your setup, we have calculated the correct amount of nutrients that you need to add per body of water in your tank, so you shouldn't need to worry about measuring EC. However, it's good to know about if you want to start DIYing your own systems at home or you want to delve deeper into hydroponics. The nutrient solution in your hydroponic reservoir should be completely replaced every 4 to 6 weeks, or basically after every grow cycle. Lettuce takes about 6 weeks to grow, so by the time that it's finished growing, you know it's time to replace the nutrient. When you're doing that, you can just tip the water out of your system, and that water is really good to go on your garden. It's still got lots of the nutrients in the water, but not enough to grow our plants through a whole new cycle. So make sure you repurpose that water, put it onto your houseplants or onto your garden at home, then flush out the system and put new water in and add new nutrients. So that kind of brings us back to hygiene as well. Like I was saying before, hydroponics are generally kept sterile of both good and bad bugs. This is just a design feature of hydroponics itself. And on a commercial scale, this is done very methodically. Think lab coats and hair nets and pressurized doorways and everything. And that's not super practical for us to do at home, but there are a few tricks that you can do to keep on top of hygiene. So firstly, boil all the water that you will use in your system for at least 10 minutes So that's 10 minutes of active boiling time. Then let that cool down before you add it to the reservoir. Of course, as we know, boiling water kills any of the bugs in there. So they'll make sure that we have nice, clean, sterile water that will go into our tanks. One other thing that's really important to know is that often the bacteria that gets into these systems comes from us, right? We carry it on our hands. It's also in the air all around us. So we want to limit the amount of things that go into the water. We definitely don't want to put our hands into the water if we can avoid that, unlike in aquaponics where we can put our hands in as much as we like. The things that go into the hydroponic setup should be sterilized. So any of the air line, the air stone, any implements that you use to stir the nutrients should be sterilized under boiling water, like the water that you put into the tank. Same goes with the nutrients. Don't touch the nutrients before you add them. Just use a clean, sterile implement to measure them out, or just pour them straight from the container into the tank. That way, again, you don't get any bacteria from your hands into the water. And lastly, try not to expose the reservoir to the air too much. So what I mean by that is right now the tank has a lid on it. If I open that up, the reservoir is now exposed to the air. That means that all of the bacteria that is in the air around us can make its way into the tank relatively easily. We know that's really good for our aquaponic systems, and that's what we want, but we don't want that for our hydroponic system. So when you're not changing the reservoir, make sure you just keep the lid nice and firmly closed. And lastly, I'm just going to address the way that we circulate the water in the hydroponic system. So with our aquaponics, we use a water pump, which we know works with the undergravel filter to promote the biofiltration in the system. And that also oxygenates the water. In hydroponics, we also want to oxygenate the water, but we do it using a thing called an air stone, which is essentially a porous little stone with air line coming out of it that we attach to our air pump. Air is forced through the line and through the stone, causing bubbles. So we leave that bubbling in the middle of our tank 24 hours a day, and that oxygenates the water and keeps it moving, stops the water from going stagnant, and it also dissolves oxygen into the water so that the plants can absorb it through their roots. And that's it. That's your introduction to hydroponics. Of course, it's a very deep world, so if you're interested, you can always do your own research. There's many different types of hydroponics out there. There's many different nutrients, ways of growing, different types of things you can grow. You know, it's really quite an exciting technology. So please, by all means, do your own research into it. In future videos, we're going to show you how you can set up the hydroponic system using the polystyrene boxes like this. But until then, hang tight and we'll see you soon.